special community news from the Hill. I'm your host, Erica Fox. And it's not February and it's not June, it is August, but Black history is American history, which is year round. On June 17th, 2021, President Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act bill that established Juneteenth, a federal holiday. My very, very special guest today on Community News from the Hill is Dr. Opal Lee, known as the grandmother of Juneteenth. Dr. Opal Lee, welcome to Community News from the Hill here on WJAB.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm delighted.
I'm excited. I love your virtual background. And as I'm saying that, because this wonderful interview on radio, WJAB-FM, will also be on WJAB-TV. And I love that I'm recognizing that that is a quilt. And that is just absolutely beautiful. And talk about history, keeping you warm. I like that.
Listen, I have a cousin in Kingfisher, Oklahoma, who did that quilt for me. What she said was simply cut out the t-shirts you have and give me the front and back. And that's what she did. Isn't that marvelous?
That is most definitely. I tell you again, history keeping you warm. I like that. So I'm so excited that you are talking with me today, and our listeners are having the opportunity to hear from you. And you were born in Marshall, Texas in 1926, and you grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. Like you, I grew up in an all-white neighborhood, and attended all-white schools. I was in the 5th grade when I finally realized that I was Black. How old were you when you realized that you were Black?
Oh, sweetheart, I guess from, I just don't remember, because in Marshall, in our community, I seldom saw a white person. There was a man who came in a car. He was called the L.B. Price man. And he sold clothing and houseware and cookware out of his car. Well, I guess he was white. Nobody ever told me. And then at the end of our street, University, past Wiley College, which is now a university, there's a store called Moranto's. And the people there, it was a family who ran it. And nobody ever told me nobody told me they were white. I guess it was when I got to Fort Worth that I actually knew what white people were.
Interesting. How old were you when you realized that equality and inclusion did not include you?
Hey, I guess when my mom would take us to buy clothes and shoes and things when we were in elementary school, and we couldn't try on the shoes and we couldn't try on the clothes. Maybe that's when I learned, and I was 9 or 10.
So when it comes to your education, as I said, both of us went to predominantly white schools. How lacking was your education when it came to Black history? Any kind of information that dealt with Black people, how lacking was it?
Well, you need to know that I didn't go to school with whites. That was before that came later, I suppose, because I went to all Black schools. I went to Newtown School. And when I got to Fort Worth, I went to Cooper Street School. It's now, they destroyed it, but it was called Amanda F. McCoy for the first Black principal. And then Gwen and I am Terrell. So I didn't know a thing about white kids in school. My schools were all Black. And I finished at 16 and went back to Marshall, to Wiley, which is a university now. So for me, white people simply didn't exist.
That's interesting. That is very interesting. Just being, I guess I did the opposite in terms of my schooling was predominantly white. And then I came to Alabama A&M University, was the complete opposite. And so it was some people thought that I had a rude awakening, or it was just really eye-opening. I said, no, I fit in, wherever I was able to fit in no matter who I was around. But I do appreciate both experiences that I had in the different cultures and music and food and different things like that. I truly can appreciate that. I always say that everything happens in its time and when it's supposed to. And a lot of people forget about Claudette Colvin sat on the bus before Rosa Parks. But when Rosa sat, that's when it was time for that kind of equality and inclusion to happen for Black people to ride on the bus. So the Emancipation Proclamation was written January 1st, 1863, only freeing slaves in Confederate states. And then, of course, unfortunately, other slaves had to wait 2.5 more years, and especially those in Texas. And when they found out in 1865, how did you learn about Juneteenth? Who taught you? Where were you?
Well, I guess I should say I knew about Juneteenth in Marshall when I was knee-high to a duck, because we always went to the fairgrounds for Juneteenth.
Really?
Now, we had ball games, and we had food, and we had music and food, and people speaking, and food and food and food and food. It was more like Christmas than anything else. At that age, it didn't dawn on me, or nobody told me about the significance of the celebration. And when we came to Fort Worth, people sort of, they celebrated with their family or friends, except when I met Lenora Rolla, and she had been asked by the city of Fort Worth to gather the materials written about the contributions Blacks made. It was the 175th or something anniversary of Fort Worth, and she could find absolutely nothing written, nothing. So she started the Tarrant County Black Historical and Genealogical Society. It still exists. And one of its programs was Juneteenth. Well, I remember a Juneteenth in a tiny little park called Sycamore Park. And the paper says there were 30,000 people in a 3-day period, 10,000 people a day.
Wow.
Now, the Historical Society took exhibits to the park, but I hardly think anybody paid much attention to them. And we just had the best time. We had a festival to die for.
So did you all think you were just out there just, having it's like a circus or a fair, just a party, just a gathering, with not really understanding why?
Right. And then one of those times, we all know when we were at the park that when they pulled the plug and the lights went out at around 10, we were to go home. This time, I got on a flatbed truck and put that thing back in, and we partied till dawn. I'm here to tell you we had a good time. A Juneteenth, there was a Dr. Ronald Myers who came from Fort Worth. He was born in Madison, Wisconsin, but he was traveling around and making sure that people knew why Juneteenth was important. I think some of Dr. Myers rubbed off on me because I started advocating for Juneteenth. He's responsible for some 42 or 43 of the 50 states having Juneteenth observances or festivals, And I kind of think some of Doc rubbed off on me because I began thinking about it too. And he was adamant about it becoming a national holiday. Well, since it is a national holiday now, And I guess Doc's kind of looking down and saying, well, it's about time you got that done. But what happened was I had raised 4 children. I had gone to colleges and universities. I had been I had been part of a group that started a food bank that serviced them some 500 families a day. We had gotten permission and the use of 13 acres. And so we have Opal's farm. But I was sort of thinking, maybe at 89, I hadn't done enough. So I got together the minister of my church, Baker Chapel AAMU Church, and a county commissioner and a school board member, and I don't know how many people. And I decided I was going to walk from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C. And surely somebody would take notice of a little old lady in tennis shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And they did.
So let me ask you this, though, before you started doing that walk, what was your civil rights walk like as a teenager and as a young adult that even gave you the gumption to want to walk from Fort Worth to Washington, D.C.?
Would you believe I was so busy just making a living for 4 children?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do the marches and the walk. Would you believe my daughter did? She was part of a group that picketed the grocery store in our neighborhood because they wanted cashiers in that grocery store. Do you know they closed it rather than have clerks black? And they went downtown picketing one of the department stores. And they finally did get people, clerks in that store.
Mm-hmm.
That store's, the people who owned it, one of the women is now one of my best friends. Can you believe that?
That's wonderful.
Well, I want you to know that I didn't take part in what they were doing, but I sort of helped them out a little bit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you talk. No, go ahead. They what now?
Well, they had to have food and they had to have substance and a place to meet. Now, I think it was Dr. Brooks who really was their backbone.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another gentleman who joined them. And I sort of think the city fathers gave them whatever demands they were asking for to get them off the street, you know? Yeah.
So I think somewhere there in the mix, even if it was just a vibe from you, is where your daughter got the idea that she needed to get involved civically. And I wholeheartedly applaud her and anybody else that did that to make the change with the stores there. And so you picked up the reins, or as they said, the bloodstained banner. You picked it up and you put your boots on the ground, as I always say, and your voice in the air from Fort Worth to Washington, D.C. Talk about that trek, if you would. You walked 2.5 miles through various cities. What does the 2.5 come from specifically? Because I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, did you walk from Fort Worth to DC, all those miles? But you broke it up for a reason.
Well, they need to know that the 2.5 miles was predicated on the fact that the enslaved in Texas didn't know they were free for 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. 2.5 years longer were they slaves. But you need to know that there were slaves in Oklahoma that weren't freed until 1866 because the United States had to make treaties with the Indians before the Indians left. And there were border states and others until weren't free until the 13th Amendment. But Juneteenth sort of stuck, and everybody celebrates all those different times on the 19th of June.
Mm-hmm.
And walking from Fort Worth to Washington, I don't want people to think I walked 1,400 miles, but I had planned to.
I like that kind of heart. Uh-huh.
What happened was somebody had promised us an RV so I could sleep and rest on the road, but they decided what I was doing was too political, and they kept that cotton picking old RV.
Mm-hmm.
So my team said I would only go where there were Juneteenth celebrations or where I was invited. And I was invited all over these United States. I'm here to tell you, I was invited to Shreveport and Texarkana and Little Rock and St. Louis. I was invited to Chicago
Mm-hmm.
and Atlanta. I was invited all over the place. So if I left Fort Worth, September 2016, I actually got to Washington January 2017. And we had asked President Obama to walk with us from the Frederick Douglass House to the Capitol, but he was in Chicago. I didn't get what I wanted. However, with the help of P. Diddy,
okay,
we got 1,500,000 signatures that we took to Congress.
Wow.
And we were prepared to take that many more when we got the call to go to the White House.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, I don't know how to express it, because I still pinch myself sometimes to see if it really happened.
Mm-hmm.
And to get to the White House with the president and the vice president and all those congressional people, I could have done a holy dance.
I bet.
The kid, when I tried that, I'm twerking, whatever that is.
Don't do that. Don't do that, Dr. Lee. But I'll allow it though if you need to. That is too sweet. I love that. So you made some huge strides, and you made it an educational walk to the White House. Do you think now that it is a holiday, and unfortunately a lot of people don't recognize or respect that MLK Day is a national holiday, and don't really, as we like to say, make it a day on, not a day off, and go do some community service. Do you think enough has been done for Juneteenth to be a national holiday, or more needs to be done?
There's more to be done. Oh, there's more to be done. And so I say to young people, to anybody who will listen, we can't rest on our laurels.
Mm-hmm.
We have got to do something about the education system. We've got to do something about health care, climate change, joblessness, homelessness. All these things have to be addressed. And I think starting with the education system might be where we will go, because it does not make sense to take the books out of the school.
Mm-hmm.
You can't erase history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You positively can't erase it. It actually happened. And we need to know about it. We need to heal from it. And we need to be sure that it doesn't happen again.
Most definitely.
So that's just one of the things we have to do.
Mm-hmm. I really hope that our listeners that are tuning into Community News from the Hill today are as excited as I am to know that you will be here in the Rocket City this weekend, and you're going to visit the Bob Harrison Senior Wellness and Advocacy Center. You're going to worship at your sister church, St. John AAMU Church. And we do want our listeners and our viewers to know that there will be 2 events that are open to the public. Dr. Lee will have a book signing on Sunday, August 28th from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on the campus of Oakwood University. in Moran Hall. Then on Monday, August 29th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., there'll be an informative dialogue with you and Margot Gray from WAFF 48 at the UAH Charger Union Theater. And as you talk about education, you're going to do a book reading at Highlands Elementary School, which is not open to the public. That's for the kids, and they will learn from your book, Juneteenth, A Children's Story. What do you want those young people to take away from that book and when you read it to them?
I want the little ones to be aware of what actually happened. They need to know because they are the ones who are going to get us out of the quagmire that we are in. Those young people, when they know the truth, will be able to make the decision that these kinds of things don't happen again. And they could easily happen if we get apathetic. We leave it up to somebody else to do what we should be doing. And so I'm hoping that they'll take back from the book, or what I say, that parents right now, young people, need to make themselves a committee of one to change somebody's mind. We know people who aren't on the same page we are on. Change their minds. If people can be taught to hate, they can be taught to love. And it's our responsibility to do that. Don't think it's going to happen in a day. It's going to take work. But can you not imagine if we took 1,500,000 signatures to Congress and we were prepared to take that same amount? Don't you know 3 million people on the same page could turn this country around?
And then when they become seniors in high school, they need to register to vote.
That's true. I can't tell them. I don't know how to show them that we don't have guns, but we've got sharp minds. Those kids register, and not just them. They got to see that somebody else is registered. And until they can register, they ought to see that their grandparents and their aunts and uncles and everybody else goes to vote, because that's what's going to bring us through.
Most definitely. And with those voices, they need to see that they can make a difference. And as you said, they're sharp minds, and go take a sharp pen or a Sharpie and go vote. Yes,
indeed.
Make that difference. And I'm glad that I found this book. I don't know if you can see it. What is Juneteenth? I tell you, it's hard to show stuff on a virtual background, but I'm gonna get this signed by you because it does feature you, and it's a New York Times best-selling series. And these books, I've bought so many as I find them, because it's so easy to read for young people as well as adults. And but this one, What is Juneteenth? And you can get more information in here as to what she's talking about. There it is. What is Juneteenth? Well, there we go. I love this book.
My book looks like this one. Look, it's Juneteenth for children.
I love that.
This is, I want all the schools, the libraries, everybody to have Juneteenth for children. I'll bring it when I come.
I look forward to that. After your visit to Huntsville, where will your next message be taken to? And I do want to say thank you, because you wanted to take a tour of an HBCU and you chose Alabama A&M University. So we look forward to welcoming you here on the Hill, as we call it. And so after your talks and your book signings and church worship, where will you go next with your message?
Oh, listen, I have absolutely no idea. They make up a schedule and I just follow it, and I just have the best time. And I'm delighted that I'm coming to Alabama, because I've got friends there. And it's gonna be a wonderful reunion. I have, it is going to be. Mhm.
I know you are excited. And so for all of our viewers and our listeners, for more details about Dr. Lee's visit to Huntsville, please visit the website of www.uah.edu/humanities center. And I would like to thank Nicholas Jones of the UAH Humanities Center, Angela Curry of United Women of Color, Veronica Curtis, Dion Sims, and Deborah Hikes for this wonderful opportunity to talk with you. Also to Michael Burns, who is twisting the knobs here, our Associate Director, Electronic Media Communications, WJAB-TV and WJAB-FM, Latoya Clemens, Program Manager, WJAB-TV, and Bobby Jones, Chief Videographer, WJAB-TV, and Mr. Elvin Jenkins. Dr. Opal Lee, any final words that you would like to share with our listeners and our viewers about you and your Juneteenth?
I'm excited. And I guess I haven't mentioned the fact that in Fort Worth, we're putting together the Juneteenth, the National Juneteenth Museum.
Oh.
Ooh, and so we have acquired the land and we are about to raise some $70 million.
Ooh.
70, oh, more than that.
That's a lot. So everybody coming out, we want them to come out on Monday, August 29th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. again at UAH, the Charter Union Theater. We can hear more about how they can give and help for the construction of that Juneteenth museum. And congratulations to you all in getting that taken care of and for that to come to fruition. We look forward to that. Dr. Opal Lee. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Let me tell you this. The president gave me a check for $6.19. And so when we start our capital campaign, people can give us $6.19 or $60.19 or $600.19 to symbolize that it was June the 6th, on the 19th of June, that people were freed. I want people to know that, and I want them to be able to participate in what we are doing here.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And so many ways for everybody to get involved. Again, go to uah.edu/humanities center, and you can get more information about Dr. Opal Lee's visit to the Rocket City. Thank you so much for bringing the joy of Juneteenth to Community News from the Hill here on WJAB-FM, WJAB-TV, and of course here in the Rocket City. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.